Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for being here. Today's video is going to be all about things I do and don't let my kids do. This might be my most controversial video yet, just because we're touching on topics that are like parenting, do's and don'ts, or things that I do and don't subscribe to. I probably should do another video just about like parenting styles that I don't subscribe to, but for the purposes of today's video, I'm going to be covering things that I do and don't let my kids do and why. So stay tuned for that. But if you have not already, hit the subscribe button and turn on your bell notifications so you can get notified anytime I post a new video. Go ahead and follow me on my Instagram. I'll leave the handle below, but you can get a lot more content a lot more frequently there. And also please hit the like button if you do find this video useful or helpful or like it. Give me that thumbs up. I'm trying to talk myself out of making another coffee for the day. Not an ad. I'm sort of trendy with this like knockoff Stanley cup I got from TJ Maxx. Thought it was a good find. I feel like I'm back in high school with my little bun on top. Anyways, okay, first thing I let my kids do, I let them get hurt. So I know that sounds kind of funny. Like, yes, my kids are safe and they're in a safe environment, but I let them explore and I let them try doing dangerous things, I'll say, like climbing and running and jumping and playing on the playground. And I'm not hovering over them like, oh, they're gonna get hurt. I'm not projecting that fear onto them at all. I let them do dangerous things carefully, and I make sure that they're not gonna be severely injured. Like, we're not taking a trip to the ER or anything like that. But I have let my kids go up and down stairs before they were able to walk and climb up in their learning tower, things like that. Just like things that they could fall, they could bump their head, they could trip, whatever. But I think nothing is a better teacher than natural consequences. And I'm a huge, proponent of natural consequences. So that is the first thing that I do let my kids do. Second thing I let my kids do is get messy. It's funny because I'm a really neat and tidy person. I like to be clean. I don't like a mess. I don't like being messy. Saying that I let my kids get messy might be surprising, but I think that sensory and just getting messy and playing, all those things are so good for kids. And I know it's been proven scientifically for brain development that getting messy with food and playing with food and throwing food and all those things are actually really good for their development. So I've always let my kids do that. It wasn't always easy, but I think I got over that right away. And then it just has been not even worth fighting that battle. If you have kids, you know what I mean. It's just they're gonna get dirty, they're gonna get messy. My house, it can always be cleaned up. I let them play with their toys, dump out their toys, make a mess, spread it out. I don't care. I don't make them clean up something immediately after they play with it if they move on, just because later I'll talk about free play, but I let them go from one thing to the next. So I'm not micromanaging, oh, you walked away from your kitchen, you need to put away your kitchen stuff. No, they can play, and then once we're transitioning to maybe nap in the afternoon, we'll go clean up our messes. So I am still teaching them the concept of things have a place and they need to be put back, but I'm not saying you can't dump everything out or you can't get messy. I don't believe in that. So that's something I do let my kids do. Third thing I do with my kids is I talk to them like adults. So I've never been a fan of baby talk or using baby language, things like that to talk to kids. I think it's actually holds them back with language skills and just processing life and just language in general. So I've always talked to my kids just like I would talk to anybody else. And I think that also shows my kids that there's a mutual respect that I have for them. I think that's huge. People always compliment me on Reagan's ability to communicate, and although I think a lot of that is her and just natural ability, I have always just talked to her a lot, and I've brought her along with me throughout my day. I've explained things to her, and even if I could dumb things down to explain something to her, I don't. I explain to her exactly what it is, and I show her and she catches on and she picks it up so quickly. So I think that that has actually really contributed to her language skills. Sort of mentioned this one earlier, but another thing I do let my kids do is free play. I learned pretty quickly after having my daughter about free play. This is something I learned probably on Instagram. I learned a lot of things from Instagram, honestly, but I liked hearing about how free play actually promotes the most learning and the fastest learning and creates an environment of just like creativity, and being bored is a good thing for kids. I always was aligned more with like a Montessori style anyway, so this definitely went hand in hand with Montessori, but I don't really manipulate my kids' play. They pretty much just like go about their day. There's not like structure to it other than like, yeah, we wake up around this time and we eat breakfast, but like after that, it's like they do what they want. It's not like I'm setting them down to do a specific activity or anything like that. I want to set my home up for a safe environment all around so that they can just like do whatever, wherever in the home. I allow them to play at their own pace, where they want. I don't control or manipulate the activity within reason. I have very routine activities that I do, whether that's just like laundry or cleaning or exercising, whatever that is. So I do those things and she can be there with me or she can be doing her own thing. It just really takes a lot of pressure off of me to be like entertaining my kids, because I don't think that's our job. So yeah, love free play. So this is the last thing I'll touch on for do's, but I do enforce this in my home, and that is nap time. Nap time is not an option, and it is a necessity. If you're a stay-at-home parent, you know, like, it is so important to have this time to debrief and get some things done that you need to, or just rest, whatever it looks like for you. But for me, I get the most done during this time. Right now, my kids are napping, and I wouldn't be able to do these videos if they weren't. But we are all better human beings when we are rested. We're just happier. We have better ability to regulate our emotions, all of those things. I will say, it definitely shows, like, if your kids are overtired, like, you'll see kids in public places that are just like pushed to their breaking point and completely melting down. And I'm a big believer that like a lot of that can be avoided or is caused by lack of sleep. So I feel so bad for a lot of kids that just seem like they're so tired and they're just getting dragged along with their caregivers to do those activities that the caregiver wants to do. And it's just like, yes, I get it. Like, I get that life can't stop for kids, but at the same time, I think rest is important, and I'll get into another point for things I don't do, but having things so scheduled or like always on the go can definitely affect them in their development if they're not getting enough sleep. Also, because I understand with having HSP, being a highly sensitive person, I get overstimulated easily. So I am very sensitive to that with my kids, making sure that their environment is not overstimulating. When you're tired, things can be way more overstimulating, so it's just important. On to the don'ts. The first one I don't do is I don't do things for them. So this is within reason. Obviously, there are things that they can't do on their own right away, but overall, I try not to be hovering over them and doing everything for them and like fixing things for them. Even with the realm of like baby proofing, like I have created a safe environment, but I've like minimally baby proofed, because I think it's more important to teach kids how to adapt to the environment that they're in. And we're gonna go to people's houses that are not baby proofed. We're gonna go into places that aren't, every door is locked and the cabinets are latched and the corners are covered. Like, that's not life. So it's just, I want to create a realistic environment, but also a safe one. I don't do everything for them. I think they need to learn how to do it on their own. I think they learn from failure and making mistakes. And as a perfectionist and a child who wanted to be very independent, I think if my mom or dad would have come in and like seen me trying to figure something out and they just swooped in and were like, oh no, here, let me do it for you, it would make me feel more like a failure, like I didn't know how to do it good enough, and more of a reflection on like my ability or lack of ability. So I definitely think that that can be the case unintentionally for kids. So I definitely try to let my kids figure things out on their own and independently, even if that means it takes longer. I could do it easier or faster or better than them, doesn't matter. They learn so much from just figuring things out independently. And that's another thing that I can already see with Reagan. She is so much more independent than a lot of her peers, and that's because I've always encouraged her to figure out another way. Even when she does come to me and say, Mommy, I need help, I can't do it. My first instinct is not always to just swoop in and do it for her. I've tried to change that to be, oh, I hear that you're wanting my help. Do you think you can find another way? Or have you tried doing this? Or maybe I'll make suggestions to try to get her on the right track, but I do, on the whole, really encourage her to figure it out or try something new. So, yeah, that's something I don't do. Okay, number 2 is overschedule. I really try to protect our normal structure of life, our routine. Obviously, I know things don't always go to plan, things are not always scheduled. There are off days, totally fine, and that's in our life too. But I try to limit that. So I try to make majority of our schedule, like I'd say 75% of the time, we stick to our normal routine and we're home. But maybe 1 or 2 times a week, there's maybe a nap skipped, or they stay up late and maybe miss bedtime, or we're out and about, so it's just an on-the-go nap or a car nap, or we are not in the regular rhythm. I do try to keep that to a minimum. It's not for everybody, and you have to find what works best for you, but this has worked really well for us. We still go out to dinner with friends, we still go to the zoo, we still do swimming lessons for the most part. I try not to overschedule them, and I try not to keep them pushed past their limit. Another thing I don't do is timeouts, and really any corporal punishment for that matter, and that could be like a video of its own, but I try to keep this short and to the point. But I believe, from learning through therapy and through just learning more about like brain science and how children's brains develop, staying relational with your child is the most important thing, right? Not to get into like a psychology lecture or anything, but kids are trying to attach to somebody in their life, right? Like they come out of the womb wanting to attach to us, find out who's safe, who's not, who's going to take care of me and nurture me. And so things like timeouts or physical punishment to change or correct a behavior shows the child that like, oh, my parent or my caregiver says they're a safe person and I feel like I can attach to them. But then if I do X, Y, or Z, they don't want to be around me, or they send me to my room, or they isolate me from them. And they're learning like your love is conditional, essentially. So I want to be showing my kids unconditional love. I want to be staying relational with them and letting them know I'm not intimidated by your meltdown. I'm not intimidated by your emotions or, your behavior. Their behavior doesn't change me. I'm not going to like say, okay, you are yelling and screaming, so go away from me. I don't want to be around you now. I'm trying to teach them that like, I will always be here with you through your tough feelings and emotions, and nothing you do is going to make me not love you or not want to be with you. Teaching that at a young age I think is important, and I think timeouts, although I understand the point of them, like don't get me wrong, I want a timeout sometimes. I think my kid needs a timeout sometimes, but then I take a step back and realize, what is this teaching them, right? Because everything we do and how we treat them is teaching them something. And so I don't want them to think love is something that they need to earn or that they could lose if they do something that I don't like. I would say like an alternative to a timeout sounds super cheesy, so understand I know that, but a time in, right? Kids melting down, kicking, screaming, it's not okay. It's inappropriate behavior. I'm going to grab them, hold their arms down, make sure that both of us are safe, they're not able to hit or kick me or harm anyone. But I'm gonna let them know, I'm here with you, and it's okay that you feel this way. It's not okay to hit or kick, but I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And sometimes if I'm in the right environment, I will just let her be, and I'll just sit on the floor and observe and let her know, yeah, I hear you, I'm here with you. And if you need a hug, I'm right here, let me know. And trying to respect her space and boundaries, but also letting her know, like, I'm not overwhelmed by your issue here, right? I'm not gonna isolate her or send her to a room and be like, let me know when you're done doing this, and then I'll come back. Because again, it just sends the message of like, you can do something that's going to lose my affection or my care or my love. So that's how I handle it, and that's a great alternative for us. Okay, next thing I do not do in our home is make my kids finish their plate. So this goes to things that I've learned just about like healthy relationship with food, healthy body image, food trauma that maybe I saw growing up or had. So this is an effort to not make any food special or better or worse than others, right? If we could just be neutral on food, I think it's just better for everybody. If we could just view food as food, I think it takes the power away from like what it holds, and food can be very powerful. So I'm never the parent that's like, hey, you need to eat 2 more bites of this and then you can go play. Or, oh, did you try this? Take a bite. I just want you to take 1 bite. Okay, well, you need to finish your veggies before you can have more of this. Like, then it's just teaching them that like some foods cause a reaction in their parent. And, oh, my mom really wants me to eat my broccoli. There's something about that broccoli that's just like a big deal to her. And why is that? Like they totally pick up on these things, right? And again, it can totally be a projection on them. We want them to be healthy. We want them to have good balance and lifestyle. And oh my gosh, what if our kid only wants to eat cookies? Like, we go to these extremes, right? Whereas if you just from the beginning play it cool as much as you can and treat foods all the same, like be across the board, just food is food. I think that it's just the best approach, and that's something I've always wanted for my kids. So that is why I don't make them finish their food. I've also encouraged them to listen to their bodies, and we encourage them to eat when they're hungry and stop when they're satisfied. Now, notice I didn't say full, because I don't think it's always healthy to be so full, right? Like, eat until you're not needing more. Eat until you're satisfied. And this is another reason why we don't have necessarily forced and structured meal times. Like, if you're hungry, eat. It doesn't have to be in the time that we're eating dinner or lunch or breakfast. Like, maybe you're a mid-morning snack person. Maybe you're like, I'm not hungry right when I wake up. We're all different, right? Like, can you imagine if someone forced you to eat when you weren't hungry, or didn't let you have a meal because, oh, it's not 5 o'clock yet, so we cannot eat? It's just, that doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem very realistic. And we're such hypocrites if we think like we need to make them do that, but we're not gonna enforce it on ourselves. So anyways, kind of falls into that like respecting my kids thing. But yeah, not on board with the finishing the plate concept. Another thing that I do not make my kids do, and this is probably gonna be pretty controversial, but hear me out, I do not make them apologize. So I just think forced apology does nothing. And they're not learning empathy, they're learning shame. You can model an apology. I do this all the time. Let's say they hurt somebody, they knocked a kid over. You know, I'm going to remove my child or remove that child and make sure that they're safe. And then I'm gonna model to my kid an apology to that kid. You know, oh, that must have hurt. I'm so sorry that I wasn't there in time to keep her from pushing you. You know, like, show that empathy towards the child, but not make a whole ordeal of it or like an event of it, right? So then privately later, not in the heat of the moment, when my kid's seeing red and they're whatever, they're angry about something, right? There's no time to teach during that time, right? They're not gonna receive anything that we're trying to teach. But later, I would have a conversation about like what happened and what we can do when that happens, and a nice thing to do to see if your friend's okay or whatever it is. But honestly, they're gonna learn the most from you modeling it. They're gonna learn from seeing how you treat others. And I've already seen this happening with my daughter, her seeing how I apologize to Sawyer. If she knocks him over, I'll go see if he's okay. And then I'll say, oh, I'm so sorry that you got hurt. That must have hurt. Oh, that's such a bummer, or whatever. Like, I'm showing her that how you can show empathy to others, not forcing an apology. So that's always fun when you're in public and it's the judgment of other parents, right? Like, most of these things we might agree with, but it's hard to do when others are watching, and it's not the social norm here. Like, this is definitely going against the grain, but I think when you understand the reasoning behind it, it just makes so much sense. Last thing I do not do with my kids is make them share. So this is another hot topic. This is another super controversial one, especially when this isn't a socially acceptable concept, right? Like, if I'm on my phone and someone comes up to me and just grabs my phone out of my hand and is like, it's my turn because I want to play with it. You had your time. No, that's not normal. That's not okay. And I should be able to be playing with whatever I'm playing with or using whatever I'm using until I'm done, right? Like, when I'm done, I'm happy to share it. And I think most kids are too. But it's like, why do I need to, in this moment, change my preferences for somebody else's preferences? And that's not how adults operate. That's not how the world operates. It's just such a weird concept to me, but I'd say this aligns more with Montessori style of learning, and kids are able to play with whatever toy they're playing with or activity they're doing as long as they want, as well as every kid in the classroom. And then when they're done, they move on, and then it's up for grabs. But we're teaching our kids that, like, we can take turns, but you do not have to share in that moment. It's not a popular opinion all the time, and like, especially in social settings, it can be uncomfortable when a kid comes up to my kid and wants to play with their toy, and I do step in and I say, oh, yep, looks like she's still playing with that. When she's done, I'm sure you can have a turn. And that's how I kind of phrase it, you know, like, and that just shows my kid that I'm protecting their boundaries and I'm modeling to them how they can handle it with another peer. So likewise, if my kid walks up to another kid and sees a toy they want and they go to grab it, I'm there to, you know, block them and say, oh, Reagan, it looks like he's still playing with this toy right now. What's another toy you can play with while you wait? Or, oh, he was playing with that. Take your time, and when you're done, can she have a turn? Something like that. So I try to redirect if I need to, but on the whole, I'm like, you know, that's just how it goes. It's fair both ways, right? You gotta wait sometimes, and sometimes other kids have to wait. That is something, and the last thing I'll say, that I do not make my kids do. This is my spiel. It's a lot of things. Do you want to see more content like this? Do you like seeing parenting videos? I think I'm gonna do a separate video just about like parenting styles, things that I, you know, vibe with and I don't. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that maybe you learned something, or this challenged you in some way. I know it's challenged me. This is not the style of parenting I thought I would take on, honestly. Like, it's not how I was raised. So this is just taking what I've learned so far and putting that to use. And I hope that I continue to keep learning. So I'm gonna drop down below in the description just some parenting podcasts and resources and books that I found super helpful. And yeah, they're just super challenging. I love a challenge. I love changing things to a better way of doing things, or, you know, I'm constantly a work in progress. So hopefully this video is not discouraging. I hope it's positive. I hope it's encouraging. But I am by no means perfect in these areas. This is just some things that I have found work and don't work for us. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.